Well, welcome everyone to Behind the Fiction. In this episode of Behind the Fiction, we have a special episode with a lot of guests and the possibility of a special guest popping in. We're not sure whether or not that's going to happen, but we're going to be talking about the KURTHERIAN Gambit timeline, which is something that's been around for a while and has evolved and has just been reintroduced. So on my screen, I'm going to introduce three people to you on my screen in the order that I see them in my screen, which is author N.D. Roberts, Nat Roberts.
Hey.
N.D. Roberts, or Nat, is she kind of takes the place of Michael's brain when there are questions that come up about what happened here and there and involved in the canon for the KURTHERIAN Gambit. It's sometimes difficult to get Michael's time, like, for podcasts like this. And so Nat is the person that we go to for that. Kelly O'Donnell is the next person that I see on my screen. And Kelly helped to build the original KURTHERIAN Gambit timeline. And the person that makes all this happen technically is Grace Snoke. And Grace is with us as well. And so she's the one who built it all into the website, and this is live on the website now, so you'll be able to see it by going to lmbpn.com, looking for those little menu buttons at the top, and there's one that says Timeline. But we're going to show it to you here. But let's get started with Kelly. Kelly, when did the need for the timeline actually come up?
The official need or my need?
Whatever triggered it to start.
That would be my OCD. It was driving me crazy not to know what order to read these books in. I guess it was TKG 12 or 13, I think it was. So I found some program online, and I am not tech savvy in any way, shape, or form. And after finally figuring it out, after like a month of playing with this thing, I wasn't able to do it by book. It ended up being by series. Some of you may have seen it. It used to be the old printable one, which became really, really not printable. And it all started from my OCD. And then I started with JIT, and it was like, okay, well, we can slap this one in here and this one in here, just trying to figure out where everything went.
And for people who aren't intimately familiar with the KURTHERIAN Gambit universe, when Kelly says there was a need to put these things in order around book 12, you might be thinking, how hard could that be? Because it's 1, 2, 3. But by the time we got to 12, it wasn't just the KURTHERIAN Gambit series. There were other series that had sprung up and that were taking place in the universe. And people were wondering, okay, at what point do I go over and read this series by Craig Martell, or read this series by Justin Sloan, or read this series by C.M. Raymond and L.E. Barbant? So is that what we're talking about that triggered the OCD for you? And let me apologize now. We have roofers overhead, and I'm hoping you don't hear much of this, but I apologize for the bonus noise that you're getting in this episode. So Kelly, is that what triggered the OCD for you?
That's exactly what it was. I had caught up with TKG and saw these other series that were KURTHERIAN, and I started reading them. I'm like, well, wait a minute, I should have read that like 6 books ago, and it was just getting them in order to keep the characters and who was where when, just keeping them straight.
And your official role within LMBPN Publishing was what at this time when you just decided, I'm going to throw myself into this project?
I was just a JITer. I had just started JITing. And for those who don't know, that's the proofreading team, looking for those pesky typos. And it was just, I was reading them before they were coming out, and I was like, no, wait a minute, that should have been back there. What are we doing with it now? And it was just getting them into order, because I knew if I was struggling with it and wondering where they went, other people probably were too.
Okay, so we had this timeline with you, and then there was a desire by some people in the JIT team, which is an entirely volunteer organization. But some people in the team thought, wouldn't it be cool if we had like something that was a little bit more interactive, where we could click on something and it would take us to the book? So there was a process where another timeline was built, and for a while we had two separate timelines going. So what was that like?
We did. I did not, that one was well above my abilities to manipulate tech. Just, yeah, well above it. So the gentleman that was taking care of that one, it was a lot of back and forth between us, making sure, we were keeping them updated together. One being, of course, the interactive clickable one, and then the one that was originally supposed to be printable. It's just a lot of back and forth to make sure everything was placed where it was supposed to be on both of them, and that when you click the links worked, and that they were updated at the same time.
And at what point did the whole thing sort of collapse under its own weight? Because again, this was an entire volunteer army that was doing this, and all of a sudden we've gone from pushing or publishing, maybe one or two Kurtherian books a month to a lot more.
A whole lot more. Really, life just got in the way. And then I got a new computer and lost the program. So it was like, oh, I probably should have backed that up. But, that tech savvy thing again, or lack of. And it just fell through the wayside, and that was it. And then we went with the Word documents that are under the file tabs under the file tab in the groups, which are printable if you guys look there. The one page, that's all it takes. Not pretty, not special, certainly not clickable, but you could print it and it was right there, and they are even still now kept up to date. And we just went with that until we decided on what we have now.
And so what we had now was, this has been a process for a while. There had been a lot of discussion like, we need to do another timeline. We need to update the timeline because we're getting emails constantly, like, when are you going to update the timeline kind of thing? What order do I read these books in? So at what point did you and the people that you worked with to build this new timeline take this on? So when did this project start, the new one?
That's about 6 months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say like 5-6 months ago. Nat was working with me on it.
So let me ask the question, was it pre-COVID, post-COVID, but way before COVID?
Oh, pre.
Yeah, definitely pre.
So for people who don't know, we have a surprise guest who has popped in and started asking questions out of the blue. Like, oh, when did he get here? When did Mr. Anderley get here?
Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing?
Welcome to the podcast. So Kelly, yeah, go ahead. And it was pre-COVID?
It was pre-COVID. I think the conversation originated between Nat and Michael, and I got kind of dragged into it a little bit. Not sure how that one happened, but it was fun to work on. You didn't take
one step back and say, whoever's interested, take one step forward, and you didn't move backwards.
Oh, man. I'll have to work on that one.
All right, so now I've got a question, and this is going to bring Nat into the conversation as well as Michael. So when we're building this timeline, there's all of this. You'll see it. We're going to show it in a little bit, and when you go to the website to look at it, it's broken out into different pieces now, but it's very elaborate, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And at what point did Mr. Anderley decide, I'm not answering these questions anymore. We need someone else who knows all of this stuff to start answering these questions?
Probably before. Like, it probably started with, I'd like to do a timeline, or the fans are asking for timelines, or what about the continuing the timeline? And I said, not me. Has anyone noticed how I suck at calendars? Anyone? And so I probably at that point, if either Nat, I can't remember the exact Nat. Do you remember if you asked me, or if it was more like tap you on the shoulder and say, hey?
Well, at the time I was taking care of like gathering everybody in for you, and it was like, okay, we need this resource.
Oh,
And
you're to blame.
I'm like, hey, we need this resource, and not only do we need this resource, but the resource that the fans have needs to be updated, usable, user-friendly, just...
No, we try to go for user antagonistic. Yeah, but no, yeah, that sounds about right, because there was probably the request, because Kurtherian Gambit has gotten so large, so unwieldy, and so many fans, are really completionists, I guess you could say. They're the ones who like to read in order, understand where things are, and we hadn't had that from a while, from the the last couple, from John, who had I think it was John, right, who had really helped bring the one that we had to bear so far.
Yeah, it was John Razor, who was another member of JIT, who was the technical brain behind the clickable website or clickable timeline that we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Okay. Anyway, so regardless, thank you all for making this happen. It wouldn't have gotten done with me.
Yes, and so Nat, as we sort of mentioned in the beginning, Nat, there are some people in JIT, Kelly being one of them, Nat being another, who just have this incredible amount of information about the Kurtherian universe in their brains. And so we needed people to go ask, exactly when does this take place and where should this be? I mean, this is in the Age of Expansion, but it's, kind of ties in here, and Bethany Ann is in this book. And how do you keep all that stuff in your brain, Nat?
I have a very particular set of skills. No. It's just what I do, I just hold the whole thing in my head and pull it out as people need it. And working especially towards the end of the timeline now, where all the different series are starting to intersect again. It's incredible. And I don't do it by myself. Kelly's there. Kelly is just my like guardian angel. It's a team effort. We all do it together.
I think I now know how come Kelly didn't take one step back.
Yes, well, Kelly never takes a step back, which
she
is
doesn't.
She's a great thing about Kelly.
That kind of person. You are not. She's not. She's wonderful. She's like, let's do this.
I'm going to practice taking one step back. Here's your warning.
All right, so Kelly, walk us through the process of organizing this. So there are a couple different things that are going on. There's some information that we already had, because we had a timeline that we lost track of, but it was there. A lot of the information was there, but we chose to do it in a completely different way. So technically there was work that needed to be done, and we needed to bring in an artist to help to put it all together. So how did that go? Did you kind of like create like a Word document or something with lines and arrows and give it to someone, or something else?
Actually, use the suggested reading order lists that's in the group. We based it off of that. It had everything from the old timelines. Everything was in order. And then as we are reading in JIT, any new material, we slot it where it's supposed to go, if there's anything that tells us where it's supposed to go. And then Nat got with Michael, and we got Jeff Brown to actually create the images of the new timeline. And Nat and I got wonderful, fantastic weekly waffle sessions as we were watching Jeff do all the work, and we just based it off those reading order lists.
See, she's already learning one step back.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and then we get into the situation where Grace gets involved, because it's one thing to say we have this information now, but now it needs to be turned into various web pages, and links need to work, and covers need to be put in the right place. So Nat's, I don't know if you guys can see this. Nat is shaking her head. So jump in here, Nat, and let me know what I'm missing.
Okay, so we had Jeff. Jeff placed all the covers. So Kelly and I were sitting in these meetings with Jeff, and she says we were waffling. We were waffling, but as well we were placing all these covers, and not just in linear order, but to show where there is crossover between series, which series are standalone, which, I mean, we couldn't show crossover between ages, but that's the only one. And then all that, and then Grace did magic.
All right, Grace. So first off, say hi to everybody, and then can you share your screen and show us sort of the highest level version of the, for those of you listening on the podcast version, this will also be available on YouTube, and I'm sure we'll share it on Facebook as well. And you can find the timeline by going to the LMBPN website and clicking the timeline button. But Grace, can you share your screen and show us the highest level version of that timeline?
Yeah, I can do that. 1 second.
I was afraid that she was going to because she hadn't been speaking. I'm like, but she's not on mute.
I'm quiet. I can be quiet some days, I promise.
Yeah, and none of us have experienced that, but yeah, we all believe her. So Grace, can you kind of walk us through what we're seeing here? And right now we see just the top part of it, but it kind of expands a bit beyond that.
Yeah, so you see the top part here, and you can see where the hand is. This allows you to click on the images. I'm not going to click just yet, but as you scroll down, each one is a different image. And each image takes you to a different timeline. This one here doesn't work yet because, well, it doesn't exist yet. I'm not making any promises as to when it's going to exist either.
So Michael mentioned that these are different ages. The images all represent different ages within the Kurtherian Gambit. So Michael, can you talk for a minute about how these different ages came to be?
Yeah, sure. So the first series, Kurtherian Gambit, 21 books. And then what we wanted to do is I wanted to go from near Earth over to the future. And so in order to do that, we started breaking up timelines for, what's happening here after the world's worst day ever, which is after book 21 of the Kurtherian Gambit. And then so the Age of Expansion, which is the second one that Grace is showing with the long ship, that's kind of what's happening over with everybody where the Queen Bitch is, the Empress. And then we go down to TKG Endgame, which technically exists after the Age of Expansion. So, it continues that timeline of what's going on. But when we go past Endgame, we are actually back at Earth. And so as we scroll past TKG Endgame, we start talking about the Age of Madness, which is after Terry Henry's Chronicles and after some of Justin's books. And then we go into the Age of Madness. There's about, I think, 80-ish years. Nat, do you know the total number, or is it 80-ish?
Yeah.
Close enough.
So it's 80 years. It's
okay.
Going from and ends with like WWE, like 235. Did we say?
Sure, that sounds fantastic. Like we said, there are people who have this stuff in their brains, and there are other people who don't.
Oh, we have a spreadsheet as well, Steve. We're cheating.
So right before the Age of Madness is really what happens right there at book 21. Bethany Ann comes back, she grips Michael, she puts the shield around, and then they leave. And that's effectively ends what's going on and starts Age of Madness. And then at the end of Age of Madness is Age of Magic, which is still Earth-based. And so, we're following Earth at this Age of Magic part. And then, of course, we have Endgame, which technically is higher in this particular list, but is happening both during the Age of Madness, and then, or Magic, excuse me. And then, we will then get to Endgame. And Endgame, to give a popular nomenclature, is very similar to like an Avengers movie.
So lots of characters coming in together at the end. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's go up to the top, and Grace, let's look at the Kurtherian Gambit timeline.
All right.
Nice photo. Nice image there.
It was great watching Jeff just create these as well, because he painted all the background images on, and it was like we just kept saying it was a bit like watching Bob Ross.
So,
Really peaceful.
Nat, kind of explain the first arc, and as Grace kind of scrolls through here, we've got some other books that were written during this time and that take place during this time that some people don't know are really a part of the whole series.
Sorry, was that directed at me? I missed the question. I was
So what's the difference between the first arc, the second arc, the third arc?
Okay, so well, we have the first arc here, and this line that goes down the side, that's to show that they're all together. And then we have the box around the fans write books. So this is to show that while they are technically part of what's going on here, they're not actually connected. So we'll see that as we go down the timeline. So we have this line going down the side for the connected books, and then the boxes around the standalone books.
So
the first arc represents Earth, right? You'll notice in the 8th book, which is that We Will Build, that's when they leave Earth. So that starts the second arc.
That's it. And we have and then so we see here, we see more in the second arc. We can see the Boris books come in around Sue for Peace. So these books are running consecutively in the timeline. They're not consecutively, simultaneously in the timeline. So if you're reading and you want to read completely linearly, you are willing to come out of the Bethany Ann books to go and read along the timeline. That's how you find out where to go next.
I just think that whoever created this concept of multiple books during multiple timelines should be shot.
Yes. One step forward, Mr. Anderley.
Hell no, I'm one running that way.
Well done, Nat. Okay, and then for the third arc, we see that 3-year gap.
Oh goodness, yes. There are many gaps. But we just showed the main gaps, the ones that actually affect the reading. So as you can see, like in this 3-year gap, there's no Bethany Ann happening, but we have the Liza the Bellatrix book, we have the Bellatrix book, and the Stephen and Jennifer series, and the first 3 of the Alpha Class books occur within that 3-year gap.
Yeah, so Bethany Ann is a figure in these books. She's not a main figure. And by the way, ladies, I really like that red. That's really cool.
Thank you.
And can we just point out that Alpha Class 3 is the first book that you see in the timeline with the name N.D. Roberts, which obviously is Nat, who's been talking about this. She was also part of some of those fans' rights books up above.
That was 2 steps forward at that point.
Yes. Nat also has not learned how to.
No, Nat ties the blindfold on and jumps in feet first, and that will never change.
Okay, let's go down to the third arc. There we have what Michael mentioned was the world's worst day ever that triggered all kinds of other things. Yeah.
We'd just like to note that in Alpha Class 4 here, that actually shows the gate crossing. So when we've been able to find an actual event, we can list. We've put it there. So you see how we've put the gate crossing with Alpha Class 4. And then World's Worst Day Ever gets the explosion. Because it's an event.
Yes, and maybe this is assumed and maybe it's not, but all of these books are clickable. So if you click on one of those books, it will take you to Amazon where you can grab the book if you haven't already read it.
And it'll take you to the Amazon in your country, so that's even better.
And that's
even
your
better.
magic.
Fantastic.
That was the magic. It's amazing.
We should save money. Get into KU.
And so we see the Nomad books turning up here after the World's Worst Day Ever, and those are books written with Craig and Michael. That was a completely new series of 11 books, and that's kind of where some of the real confusion started kicking in amongst people. Like, how does all this fit together?
Thank you.
And then we see a new series, the Accio series down here, from Charles Tillman and Michael. And all the way down to the bottom, we've got the 150 years later, and we see the series that Michael mentioned earlier of from Justin Sloan and Michael, and we see the individual books that were written because an author did something that he didn't realize. He didn't realize the impact of
you
that,
would have to mention
and so
this.
an entirely new series needed to be written to appease the fans and set up this fabulous ending to the first 21 books with the simultaneous release of Life Goes On and Dawn Arrives.
So that that particular title of that particular series, The Dark Messiah, should be subtitled, "I'm really, really, really sorry."
And if you don't know what we're talking about, we're not going to tell you. But if you're reading the books in order and something happens that makes you throw your Kindle against the wall, just be aware that it's not as bad as you think.
Keep reading.
Yes, perfect. Well done, Grace. Okay, so let's go back to the main screen. Oh, is that it for this one? It looks like it is.
That's it.
Okay.
I
so
just
let's go
wanted to
back
mention really quick, there's little gaps in here because we couldn't put the whole image in without it becoming really, really tiny, because WordPress will shrink the images. So we had to cut them, and then the program that we're using to add in the links puts the little gaps in, and there was no way I could fix that.
But it looks okay. It looks good.
Beautiful. It just looks
I like it. I mean, it kind of breaks up the various arcs.
I just like when I was first saying to Mike what would be ideal, and we didn't even know that we could get this great clickableness in. It's amazing.
Okay, so
I knew how to do the clickable part, but not in WordPress. Like, I'd been coding image maps for years, but not within WordPress. So I had to actually go and research, how do I make this happen?
Okay,
Steve,
so in the age of expansion, now you see that book at the top, Gateway to the Universe. That's where some of the characters in Justin and Michael's series and Craig and Michael's series go off into space, and then the characters from Terry Henry Walton evolve into space into a new series called Bad Company, and a favorite character or some favorite characters from the Kurtherian Gambit have their own series with the what I always call the Tabitha series, the Tabitha and Nikki series that you see on the far right, and we see the beginning of the Kurtherian Endgame on the left. And then Craig's series, Attorneys in Space, Judge, Jury, Judge, Jury, and is it Judge, Jury, and Executioner? I think it is.
Yes.
So that turns up here as well. So yeah, go ahead and keep scrolling.
Attorneys in Space. I've got to use that to him.
Okay, a couple things in there on the left that you may not notice. So scroll up just a smidge. So we have two books in here between Kurtherian Endgame books that are sort of a part of the Kurtherian Endgame. They're sort of like a 0.5 books, and they involve the children of Bethany Ann. And those are Keep Your Friends Close and If All Else Fails. And those, again, you can see were written by Nat and Michael. So they're a part of the Kurtherian Endgame, and they do fit perfectly in the timeline, but there are people who don't realize it because they don't show up in the Kurtherian Endgame series list. So if you haven't read those, definitely check those out.
Yeah, so if you happen to love those books, Nat wrote them. If you happen to hate those books, Mike wrote them.
All right, let's scroll down. Let's scroll down, Grace. Okay, and you can see the current Kurtherian Gambit book, or the most recent Kurtherian Gambit book, Return of the Queen here. And then if you scroll down even further, we see a lot more.
So these are the standalone series within the Age of Expansion. So while they are all wonderful series, they're not connected to what we would call like the universal plot. So the plot that's running through all the way from becomes her, all the way to the mysterious checkmate.
But each of these series found their own audience, some of which were Kurtherian Gambit readers, and some of which came to the Kurtherian Gambit through these series. So people would read, for example, Rebirth, or scroll up to the top of that section there. What's the first book in the Awakened? And go, oh, this is great. And this actually came from another universe. So people would come to the Kurtherian Gambit through books like Awakened and Formation and Vigilante and Gravity Storm. So this, from a publisher perspective, these allowed more people to find out about the series or the universe, and people who were coming from the Kurtherian Gambit universe and the Bethany Ann books could still experience even more of the Kurtherian Gambit by stretching it out and reading more of these books.
So that's and it just so happens that while you're mentioning this, the Awakened, the Ascension Myth, L.E. Clark led that. She's the main writer on that series, and that particular box set is going on for 99 cents right now. All
Yes.
of them.
And selling extremely well. So that is, if you scroll down, that's 12 books for 99 cents.
Yeah.
Some of those are Giles books.
It does not include the two that where the covers don't fit. Those are a different series that are kind of like 0.5 books that fit in between the other books. So it's the 12 books in the Ascension Myth series that are on sale for 99 cents. So if you don't have that, or if you haven't read them all, go and check that out. And of course, those, like all Kurtherian Gambit books, are available through Kindle Unlimited. All right, so let's go back, Grace. Age of Madness.
Also known as, no freaking way am I writing a horror story.
Neither am I.
All right, so here we see Michael, how did the Age of Madness come to be in terms of books being written?
Okay, so the whole concept behind Kurtherian Gambit and the nanocytes and the things that were going on, I needed them to have an evolution, and we needed to move it forward, but I felt that the way to accomplish it was through a cataclysmic event. It just so happened to be that at that time, zombies and that type of stuff was kind of a big thing, and it felt like that really kind of fit, that people mentally, nanocytes obviously are used to great extent to support humanity. Now we had a bad thing happen, and so we had to get through this period, and I wanted to change Earth over to a much more fantasy setting, to where somehow humanity got changed. They got changed into the equivalent of dwarfs or the equivalent of orcs. Well, how would that happen? And the answer is, well, nanocytes can create, well, they can destroy as well. And so through the Age of Madness is that horrible time in the middle when humanity is under the auspices, that really large word right there. I type, I don't talk. So anyway, so it's under that situation. And then, what did they have to do? What did they have to go through before they came out into the Age of Magic? There you go, Mister. You're muted.
I am muted. I am muted. So, Grace, can you scroll down a little bit? And so you see the first book in the Birth of Magic series, written by Nat and Michael, and you see a blank spot below that. That means there are going to be more. And so you can message Nat directly on Facebook and ask her when that book is coming. But this series was, one of the goals of this series was to connect the Age of Magic to the Age of Madness, and that's a complicated process that Nat's been going through, and these books are complicated to write. So it
really takes a person keenly aware of the timeline and the problem in order to be able to produce a series to help tie up everything.
Please save me.
5 steps back.
Okay. 5 steps
All right.
back.
So, Grace, can you scroll down a little bit more? And then we see, so we've got all the other Age of Madness books there, and then we see that last blank spot that is the final bridge to the Age of Magic.
And then that's the Age of Madness completely closed off then. Okay. So this will be it complete.
So the next thing that we take a look at will be the Age of Magic.
And Jeff did some amazing. This is once again Jeff Brown, the artist who has done so many good things inside of KURTHERIAN Gambit, and created these logos. This Age of Magic logo you see at the top.
So the first series in the Age of Magic was The Rise of Magic from C.M. Raymond, Elie Bourbant, and Michael. That series, you see the first 4 books, and then other series started popping up in the Age of Magic, which became a very popular age inside the KURTHERIAN universe, and you see just a lot of books in here.
It was kind of interesting. If you on something that many people might not know, but the Rise of Magic. If you look at the it's not actor model, the model. Look at her shirt and her vest. Those were actually crafted for this series. The lady who did these sewed them, made them, and so that I always found that to be pretty special.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things that we just kind of got out of the blue was the model for this series. She had asked if we could send her copies of the books, and then she sent the print books, and she sent pictures, images of her, and she's a beautiful young woman, on a bench or in different settings with the books, and those were just fantastic. So it was really cool to see a character from a book and from a book cover come to life as a real person and start. Here's the book that I did.
She's European, so she's in Europe, but I think those pictures were taken, I want to say, in Washington.
Yes, she was in the United States for a period of time, and so we rushed the books out to her, not so that she could take pictures with them, but so that they would be easier to ship. And is there more below? Okay, so there is more below there. All right.
Yeah, so many good things that are going on. Soraya Chronicles, brand new release. I see that already books 1 and 2 are on here.
Yes.
We all really kept this.
So that is a brand new series in the Age of Magic. You see
I will say it is missing book 3.
Of Accio?
As, just, woohoo, here it comes. Book 4 releases next week. I didn't want to tie up Jeff's time or Grace's time 2 weeks in a row.
No, I think
one next week.
Yeah. Now, Steve, whenever you finish one of these books, if you're on the Kindle Unlimited and you go all the way to the last page and you read the author notes, you engage with them, you let them soak in and really help. You're
completely bonded with the author.
Yes, you are completely bonded. But when you get to the end, won't Kindle Unlimited automatically pop up if you have a new book in that series?
Yes. If Amazon has the series linked, and Amazon occasionally will just unlink things for no good reason, but if the series is linked as a series, when you get to the end, it'll say the next book in the series is, in the case of The Dark Mage on the far right. If you finish the 3rd book, you would get something that said next book in the series is Magic Unbound. Do you want to see it at Amazon? And you can click yes and go to Amazon and grab your copy and just continue reading. It's a fabulous thing.
Da-da-dum.
Okay.
It's almost
all
like
right.
any little sound effects.
Like
I just add them myself.
Yeah. That was well done.
Thank you.
The only sound effects I'm adding are roof construction sound effects from the roof. All right.
They were very realistic.
Grace, can you flip back?
Sure.
For those that don't know, every once in a while I keep trying to see if I can get Steve to do a spit take or something. Drink that coffee, Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, there's no there is no coffee here. And the last thing on the list here is KURTHERIAN Gambit Checkmate. Is there I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, but is there a time range for this?
2021?
Okay, so sometime next year. For those
Most
of
likely,
you
yes.
who might be anxiously awaiting this. So it's absolutely fantastic. Grace, can you scroll all the way up the top again so we can see the menu of the web page?
I like how young Bethany Ann looks in this first picture. I'm like, I never really see her young, but it kind of captured, and she looks a little bit younger here.
Yeah, so you can see if you go to the LMBPN website, on the far right of the menu is the timeline. And so it's easily accessible, and this is the place to go. We will be keeping this up to date. Kelly is going to commit on the air right now that this will always be kept up to date. Right, Kelly?
Kelly left. I don't know where she went.
All right. Grace is going to commit that this will always be.
Okay, well, this is where we ended up. It will be updated once a month at least with everything that's new.
All right. Yes. So
He stepped forward.
It will not.
And this is why I'm here. You know.
It will not be updated the moment a book is released, but
we'll all have the laugh that
keep it up.
While we were working on this, I went in and went, there's going to be a delay in this because I'm having my appendix removed. So, yeah, I'm not working on this for a little while.
God, that was just crazy.
Man, just not willing to go there.
Yeah, so we're going to just let that die there and wrap this up. I want to thank all of you ladies for the work that was involved in this. And I'm sorry Jeff couldn't be here because Jeff put a lot of work into this as well. But this has been a group project, and it's so complex, as I'm sure you can see, that it couldn't be done by anything less than a group of really committed people. And we just want to really thank you guys, or you ladies, for all the work that you've done on this timeline.
You better make it ladies.
Fans, thank you. All right, so that is it for this episode of Behind the Fiction. We thank you for listening, and we will be back in your ear again soon. Goodbye, all.
Hello.
Hey.
Bye.
Okay, so we finished the podcast, and all of a sudden Kelly had seen something during the podcast and was able to keep herself held back. And as soon as we stopped recording, she's like, "Go ahead, Kelly."
We have new Dawn covers, and we also have new Caitlin covers. I promise we'll get them updated in the next week as soon as I can get a hold of Jeff to get the covers on and get them corrected so they will match what you are looking at on the timeline as to what you are seeing on Amazon, so you're not sitting there scratching your head going, "What?" You don't want that.
And that is a perfect example of Kelly not taking one step back. So she learned nothing.
But she kept it clean. She kept it very clean.
She didn't actually say it that way. It was a little more colorful than that. But for podcasting audience, we kept it quiet. And Nat, you noticed something as well.
Yeah, it was the Caitlin covers that Kelly just mentioned. Okay. Dan's just had them recolored, and they're looking fantastic. So same covers, they're just beautifully jazzed up.
Okay, so as you can see, this is an ongoing project, and you can get a sense of the complexity of keeping all this up. It's not just keeping the new books up there, it's updating the covers when we recover things, which we do fairly often. All right, This is officially it. Michael, do you want to say goodbye and thank people for watching?
Thank you so much for everyone for both supporting LMBPN, supporting all of the people that are behind it, trying to give you the stories that we hope you enjoy and you care to read again. Bye.